Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of CS Skills Exchange. We have a very interesting topic. I'm very curious about this topic as well, about Alliance's Solution Index. And Kurt and Darwin are going to lead the conversation with us among a few other panelists. So Kurt, I'll let you get started and take it away.
Great. Wonderful. Thanks, everyone, for coming out and attending this session today. My name is Kurt Tusek. I'm a solutions architect on the Alliances team. I'm going to go ahead and start my screen share, and then we'll get right into the session this morning or this afternoon, depending on where you're located. So again, today's session is going to be about the Alliance Solution Index. And so just to give an overview, we're going to talk about who are Alliance SA is, what's the solution index, what we're doing, what do we have today, and where we're going with this in the long term. So quick overview, the Alliance's solution architecture team, we're a little bit probably just a typical solution architecture group. We're just sliced and diced a little bit differently than, like there's enterprise teams, there's EMEA teams, there's SME teams. And so we're just the Alliances team, and our focus is creating and fostering just our alliance relationships. So with our cloud providers, platform providers, and then also our technology partners. So we're developing that ecosystem. And so these are the members of our alliances team: Atif, Darwin, myself, Summer, and Prasad as our director. And we've been kind of officially formed for the last maybe 9 months or so, after being a little bit of a nebulous group of a longer period of time. And so the thing that we're talking about today is what we call a solution index. And if you've been at GitLab for any amount of time, you know that there's many different places of finding information. So whether that's YouTube, Google Drive, slide decks, all sorts of different hobby projects, things like guided explorations, which is a big repository of solutions that Darwin has put together. We, in the Alliances team, we made our own attempt at creating kind of a card catalog of solutions. And so there's, with all these different formats of data and levels of accessibility and disparate systems, it ended up being kind of a lot of information to kind of corral and herd into one area that makes it easy for people to easily digest and to go to a single place. And so with the advent of HighSpot being introduced to the customer success org, we made the decision to consolidate a lot of our solutions into HighSpot. And the idea is that, following the overall trajectory of where customer success is going, it would make sense if we align with this tool and then, just foster the overall direction of using tools like this in the broader organization. And so what we've done is we've pushed a lot of our content into HighSpot, and we've created a spot or a page specifically for the Alliance's solution architects to store our content. And so this is something that's curated by us, the Alliance's essays I showed on the previous page, where each one of us with our respective scope is responsible for curating the links and content and managing the tagging and categorization of that content so that it ends up in HighSpot, so that it ends up under this Alliance's SA collateral page, and then is ultimately available to be consumed by our broader peers, both solution architects, customer success, and then the broader overall sales organization. So if we ask why HighSpot, I know it probably seems like another tool we have to consume, and there's lots of these that are being added. But HighSpot added value in several specific instances. First and foremost, we get traffic metrics. So we have a very clear understanding of what people like to see, what generates the most activity, what's the highest interest, and that allows us to basically create a feedback loop, and that informs our future solutions. So we know, hey, this is, we could probably go a little bit deeper on this solution. There's a lot of demand for it, or something we created that seemingly there's very little demand. So maybe it's not something we should be staying on top of to keep current or to keep updated. And again, it gives us that barometer of understanding what's most valuable or what's the more requested features. And also presents a centralized interface, right? All of our selling motions are based on bringing people together, right? Unifying disparate tools. And so kind of in a GitLab-y way, we're doing kind of what we're doing to our data sources, right? Where we want to roll those up There's so many different formats and sources and systems of record for all of these different data points. Being able to just roll them up into a view in HighSpot, again, creates a central place for us. And then the unified search tool. Within HighSpot, the search algorithm is again, it's cross-cutting across every single element or item in that system. So if you do a search for something, a keyword search, it becomes very easy to find exactly that thing. Again, if we have GitLab Unfiltered and various issue boards, I mean, if you try and do a keyword search across GitLab issues, it's more or less not super effective, or you get an avalanche of data across, again, literally hundreds of thousands of issues that you're searching. And a lot of that stuff is not really relevant for your use case. So the idea is that we want to create a first place to look for customer success. So, hey, do we have a integration with XYZ platform, or do we have any relationship with ABC company? Usually those questions are floated in the alliances channel or in a customer success channel. And that's okay, but just the async nature of our company, even somebody asked today, somebody in APAC asked about OpenShift at 4 a.m. Like, well, hopefully somebody can answer that. I think, Vladimir, you responded to that question, which is great for somebody who's in another region. But if somebody's, say, waiting on a response from me or waiting on a response from Atif, it may be hours or in some cases days before the right person would see that information. So again, having a unified place to just say, well, let me punch in the keyword of the thing I'm looking for, and at least I'll have a general understanding of if something like that exists and what we might have. So that's really the overall goal of why we would use something like HighSpot. And so where are we now and where do we plan to go with this? So I think that 26 has changed. I loaded in a few items this morning, but we have 20 something, pretty well-defined solutions across kind of our core alliances at the moment, which is AWS, GCP, IBM, and Red Hat. And so if you were to go to HubSpot, which we'll do in a second, and do a keyword search for any of those technologies, you'll see a lot of content there. And we're going to continue to expand this, right? So as our alliances team grows, as we add additional alliances, as we get decent coverage on the alliances we have now, and we expand into new technology partners, and as our ecosystem footprint expands, we're going to keep curating this, right? That's kind of the purview of the alliances SA team, is to kind of keep a curated and well-managed list of solutions that either have expiration dates on content or has been freshly loaded in, has been vetted by us, and again, is being backed by our specific alliance agreements. So you know that if something is in there, that it's well supported, there's an agreement behind it. So there's some kind of co-selling or OEM agreement or whatever the nature of the alliance is backing that content. So it's something somewhat official. And then going forward, we're opening this to internal and customer contribution. So again, if those of you all in the customer success organization are working with customers and say, oh, XYZ customer, they built this really cool integration with VMware, or they've come up with a really neat fix for getting over some hurdle or challenge that we weren't quite aware of, let's consume that and recycle that back so it again, unblocks or helps us get over hurdles with other customers, right? We want to be able to recirculate something that, one customer did, or one solution we found, whether that was at the, TAM or SA level. And we want to say, well, this is a great piece of material. Let's make sure that the rest of our customer base is aware of it. So we're open to those contributions, both internally from our own subject matter experts, regardless of what your skill set is. And if you have something to contribute to this, feel free to reach out to one of the SA teams, one of the Alliance SA members, and just put that on our radar. And then again, feeding that information in from our broader customer base. So again, just to give a quick demo of where we're at here, and I'll put this page in the chat here, just in case everyone wants to see it. One thing I found, and maybe this is something that HighSpot is getting better at, is sometimes it's a little hard to find these individual pages. If you do a search for a spot or a document, it'll pop right up. This is an individual page. And so sometimes it's a little, at least for me, it was a little tricky to find some of these things. So either way, this is a page, and it's, there's basically kind of like a WYSIWYG. What you see is what you get. HTML editor where you can drag and drop these various components. And so we've done a little bit of that. We've styled a kind of an overview page that shows, some of our more popular solutions from more of our commonly used alliance relationships. We have individual contact information, and then we have kind of just a roll up of all the content we have here. And again, all this content is basically determined by the property of, let's see here. I'll show you in HighSpot. So we have all of these categories and tags here. So this Alliance SA tag is what we monitor. That's what our responsibility is. So when we tick something with Alliances SA, that's going to cause it to roll up under this Alliances SA collateral page. And so that's the checkbox that we, once we give it that, then we say, okay, we're going to own this. It's going to live here. And we're going to, again, make sure that it's something that aligns with our current Alliance arrangements. I'll throw it to Darwin just to see if you have anything that you want to add to our presentation today.
Yeah, sure. Having some laggy machine problems, so maybe I'll have you, Kurt, click through for me. So
Sure.
if you, I just wanted to show the All Alliances content section. So if you click that All Alliances content, and this will take you, these pages in HighSpot are kind of fun landing pages. They can have some tracking, but this is the real index that you can see. You should know that items can be internal only, or they can be for customer facing, and that all of our non-technical roles within CS and beyond in sales will be using these content items to send out promotions to customers. So it's a great place to have your content in. But if you click, so once you click into this, all of these categories on the left are now the only categories being shown are ones that apply that have been checked somewhere in the Alliance's content. So now you're kind of in a sub filter. So we can see that if we go up to maybe Alliance partners and expand that, you can see there's 11 AWS items, 6 Google Cloud platforms, 4 for IBM, a couple for Microsoft. Everything in here could be multi-attributed too. So like multiple categories. So we have some stuff that we'll probably be putting up about AWS and .NET. So that would have both Microsoft and AWS clicked as partners. And then a couple of things that we have added. Kurt, if you could expand delivery mode. Right now, everything here is user self-service, but there is another delivery mode called GitLab Assisted, which means that technically this is not for you to send directly to a customer. You'd want to ask, you'd either want to, if it's got enablement built in, you either want to learn how to deliver it yourself. And when we have those kind of things, we'll try to have a video too, that if you want to deliver it to your market or your area. But user self-service is something you can send directly to the customer. And then content level, Kurt, if you could expand that. Next one, right under delivery mode, sorry. We also added this concept to the overall tags. And so the idea is just that, especially if it's user self-service, kind of what level are we hitting them at? And then I think we had, if you want to expand asset type, under here, we added the asset type of working code. So there's videos. Also, some of them are multi-attributed in this way too. So there might be a video that shows a customer a certain thing, and that thing it's showing is a working code example. So a lot of times we'll link that example, and we won't put 2 separate items in for the working code and the explainer video that explains it. Just a couple other things I wanted to mention. Just find my notes here. Apologies, my machine's been moving so slow this morning that I was having a hard time even clicking on different windows. Oh, and then it's important that when you share this with customers, you do not simply grab the link out of these items and send the raw link to the actual item. The whole concept of HighSpot is to create a pitch, even if it's just a single URL to a single piece of content. What that does for GitLab and for you is you get tracking metrics on whether they actually looked at it, even if you're dropping a link in chat. But also for those of us generating content, it gives us hit value. So we understand how much the content's being used. One of the problems right now in the whole ecosystem is if you make a piece of content and it's highly reused for 6 months or a year, there's no real way for you to know that and show that that content was valuable. And especially if you do purposely develop content to be broadly usable, it can be really helpful to have that. And then finally, Kurt, at the top, if you could click into customer success on top left nav bar, I think it might be. Maybe that works too. Okay, so then, well, actually, yeah, click recent spots. So this is the customer success landing page, and that recent spots. We put all of our content underneath the customer success sections. And what this helps is if you're searching the customer success spot and you happen to use a keyword like AWS or Google Cloud that is also in our content, it will come up. Things that are isolated by spot are a little harder to search across all spots. The way you can tell the content that we are providing is, Kurt, if you could select Alliances SA under providing maintaining group. So we're just trying to map here that if you have a challenge with the content, give us a shout. There is an ability for customers to also rate the freshness and the applicability. And I'll just give, do you want to go down in the list a bit, Kurt? May not have this on here, but I'll give you an example of one piece of content is a 5-video series on how to use something called an AWS Quick Start. So that's an example of almost like a small bit of LMS enablement as a YouTube playlist. And so that's an example of something that you could send out for the customer to be enabled on something. We also have videos on reference architecture and other motions that we've brought together in the alliances area alongside of reference architecture that are, yeah, there's that one at the top, implementation patterns is an example of explaining how our implementation patterns come alongside reference architecture for each specific cloud. So yeah, and we're also, during this meeting, we're wide open to your questions about this content index, but also just about alliances, SAs, how we can help, or even if you're unclear on how alliances can help you with getting your deals across the line. So I guess that's all I have, Kurt, if you want to open up to questions.
Sure, yeah. That's it for us. Any questions from anybody, any attendees?
I don't see anything in the doc, but feel free to verbalize and we can add them to the doc.
And I might have some questions for the crowd if the crowd doesn't have any.
It was a
So
thorough and complete presentation. Go ahead, Steve.
I was going to say, so I have a question, Darwin. You mentioned not sending the raw link, but rather creating a like a presentation or a pitch out of this. Is there a link or a button I should see on the page to do that?
Yeah. So on a given content item, you should be able to click the, okay, there you go.
Yeah,
so link pitch.
So how did you get the pitch to customer, I guess?
So yeah, so up here in the upper right, this is kind of I think this maybe should be notified a little more that so the content lives there. You hit this link to pitch and you can email this directly to somebody, you know, it'll pass it through and it'll, I think it has like tracking on delivery and all that sort of stuff, right? Or you can create basically just a pass-through link. And so that will tell you, hey, this person clicked the link, 10 other people click the link, right? Like it'll give you an idea of how deep did this attempt to pitch penetrate, right? If we send the link to one person and we say, well, nobody clicked it, we know maybe it kind of didn't land or maybe they didn't receive it. But if we send something and we're like, wow, this got 20 clicks, we know. So our contact got it, they forwarded it on to somebody else, they forwarded it on to somebody else, somebody maybe reviewed it a few times. It gives us an idea of how effective was this piece of content or how, at least how well was it received by the person we sent it to or the recipient.
Okay, and I see what I was stumbling over is the two things. The two things I happened to look at first were both internal, and so the pitch button wasn't there.
Oh, yeah.
I see that now that I'm looking at something that you put up there, Kurt.
Gotcha.
If you can go back to the customer success spot, you can also pitch multiple items even with links. So If you click back through to the whole list, overall list, there's another place where they can activate a pitch and send multiple items. So that I think the triple dots by Lynn's name, is that? Nope. Okay, so let's see. All customer success spot, maybe.
Oh, you can do
There's
select.
the plus sign, the plus at the very top near your avatar.
Well, this is, yeah, I guess you could do that.
New
I
pick.
think there's also a pick list here, which allows you to
Yeah.
cherry things.
Yeah, so you can also send multiple items, even if you're sending a link. So that's another way to do it. If you know, it would be a great way to use customer follow-up emails as well. Just say, hey, here's a follow-up email, some content I thought would be helpful compared to our meeting today, and ship that out. And if they're forwarding it, you should see those click-throughs as well.
Yeah, I want to see if there's a way to pitch content. Oh, you can also add content here.
Oh,
this
yeah,
is-
yeah.
Is it if you were searching, again, all spots, and you can apply the same filtering or the same keyword search. So, and then cherry pick the ones you want, and it'll just bundle it and attach it to one thing. Again, useful, right? There's several instances we have to send the maturity page link, a slide deck, a video as part of one competitive analysis page, right? As part of one email. So again, that gives you that visibility into what are people looking at and what are people clicking on.
Yeah, and if you haven't gotten a chance to take the training, it is the videos are there. If you're a content provider, it's a great way to provide content. But even SAs and TAMs generally do both roles, provide content and share content. So it's great to get familiar with both sides of its features if you haven't had the opportunity. And there's a channel. Two channels in Slack, and one of them has an employee from HighSpot. So we get very quick support and turnaround. And I've even given a few product feature suggestions, and they're open to that too. So highly encourage everyone to dig in and if you're a provider or a sharer, see what you can do with it.
Guys, I had a question
thanks.
about adoption and sort of culture. Like, it really feels like an excellent way to take what's in the Google Drive and put it somewhere actually findable, right, of discrete content. My question becomes, like, in the spirit of iteration, how have you found High Point to be a place where you can put sort of the first draft of content that then others are editing and iterating on and building over time? Is that possible? Or is this more the final product that you're sort of willing to let be shared with the public?
It's a little bit of both. So when you go into HighSpot to author the HighSpot index item, you probably should be ready to share at that point. So if you're collaborating on actually building it, you might want to turn off my video. It looks like I'm having bandwidth problems. You might want to do that beforehand. The actual HighSpot item though, Scott, has to be approved. So you can actually, when you start it, it's in a draft mode, and actually crafting the HighSpot index item, you can get that already, and then you submit it for approval. And then once it's approved, it becomes the new version. It also helps us deal, if any of you have done YouTube videos and you update the video, and then the old links are still there, and if you delete the video, no one can find the forward links. So this is really cool if you're updating like YouTube content to provide the forward link. So questions for the crowd, just how many of you have dug into HighSpot and gotten familiar with it? You can just use the emoji reaction if you want to give a thumbs up. I'm seeing 3, 4, okay, 5, great.
Yeah, I think it's, there's, again, it's like another tool, right? It seems like there's always kind of some new toy or thing to log into or utilize in some way. So I definitely understand there's kind of like, okay, what's the point of this thing, or how is it going to help me be successful? So I think part of it is it's a little bit chicken or the egg, right? We have the tool, then we have to populate it. If we don't populate it, if we don't drive it, if we don't keep the content updated, it becomes one of those things that doesn't get adopted. And if it doesn't get adopted, then it's like, oh, there's 4 people that use it that are getting a ton of value, and then most people are not. So I think this is kind of our attempt to not only just solve one of our own problems that we had in alliances, which is, keeping all of our information together, but, driving adoption of something like this. Like, I know there's a decent amount of reps that, maybe they make their own personal slide decks, but they don't make a lot of maybe decks that are available for just general consumption. Hopefully this maybe changes that if someone's a subject matter expert in something and they put together a great deck on some particular use case, really making that easy for other people to, utilize and share in, right? Again, if we have a good solution, if we have a good tool, if we have a sharp sword, we should be sharing it around, right? If it's something that's effective. And so that's kind of our intent here, is how do we have a group that's specifically curating content that's kind of relevant to our business needs. So hopefully that helps drive a little bit more adoption and drive a little bit more of the, oh, right, this is why this thing is important, other than that's another tool we bought.
Also, to build on what Kurt was saying, as a content provider, you can set a reminder date to check the content freshness, kind of an age out date, where it will be retired from being able to be selected. And that helps you. You know how when you generate something, sometimes you can forget about it and it's a couple, a year's worth of GitLab releases behind. This can help remind you. Could also help your team to understand how much content do we have under management? Can we really keep all of this maintained? Because the amount of time that's allocated to content generation for CS is not a strict rule. So if you get enough stuff out there, it can be hard to keep it all up to date. Anyone have any thoughts or questions about things that Alliances SAs currently do for you or could be doing for you better in terms of giving you the right collateral? Or do you know how to get an Alliance SA into a meeting, or when to, all that kind of stuff?
Darwin, this is Samir. I think people are maybe coming off mute soon, but I just kind of want to interject real quick. I think from a perspective of the content that you all are creating and putting out there, publishing out there, I'm keeping track. There is quite a lot. So sometimes it's hard for us to remember what's where, and seeing what you just showed in HighSpot, I think is very valuable. So keep up the good work. This is awesome. Thank you for delivering all this stuff. From a perspective of when to engage the Alliance SAs, that's a little bit murky. So if there is some place where we can go read up on it, a handbook page, or if you can describe it now, that would be great.
Yeah, I guess in general, I do tend to see quite a few very cloud-specific questions going into CS questions. We do have a channel for AWS, and I think maybe we don't have a channel for Google. But one thought is just if you have very highly cloud-specific questions, to either copy the relevant Alliance SA on the question wherever you post it, if you want to make it very broad. That's one thing that's helpful. Also, I think the deal components have been articulated quite well, but in case anyone's not familiar, Alliances also has the ability to coordinate on the customer side for making the billing go through the particular cloud provider, which can have a lot of advantages to the companies you're selling to. And sometimes maybe new sales folks don't know that. So it can be helpful if you know that, hey, that company may not have to qualify a whole new vendor. In most cases too, the amount of money they spend on GitLab counts against commitments they've made to the cloud provider for spend. And so that's another aspect. Yeah, and then just when it comes down to cloud specifics, the reference architectures try to handle a lot of cloud specifics, but you may have a very opinionated organization where they do AWS or Google a certain very specific way. and they're not able to deduce how to use that with GitLab. That's another time. The other thing is we're getting a lot of questions about how to deploy self-managed GitLab onto clouds, but one of the real big money makers for the cloud is when you ensure that they can take a workload and shove it into the cloud with GitLab. And that's a little bit different now because we don't have, product doesn't try to make adapters for every cloud service on every cloud. So that's something too that we can speak to. Everyone should know that you can deploy into the cloud's deployment services, and I would generally say that's better practice than trying to, some organizations mistake the runner to be an endpoint management agent, want to install it on all the endpoints, and it's just better to shove it into the cloud's deployment mechanism. So those are some of the areas where that might be helpful to pull us in.
So if I may follow up real quick with regards to the engagement, you mentioned cloud providers as being sort of the big ticket items here, but alliances has a slightly broader definition, correct? Like, for example, if somebody built an integration with GitLab, that would fall under alliances, or would that not fall under alliances? What's the scope?
Yeah, we've defined a new sub team just recently. It has traditionally followed under alliances, but I guess it's somehow now more formalized as of 2 weeks ago. But we have Mike LeBeau who works with that. There's also in guided explorations a subsection called plugin extensions, which can actually, a lot of them can self-service build their own extension. Generally, any technology partner who's plugging into CI, we don't need to make product changes to have them integrate. And I do have one example under there that tries to show that the plugin can detect if someone has security dashboards, and if it does, it can output our JSON file format. And if they don't have security dashboards, it can put out JUnit XMLs. Because from a technology partner perspective, they want the best visualization of results for their customers, whether or not they have Ultimate. And so that's another little nuance that for anyone who plugs into security scanning or quality scanning that they might want to pay attention to. And so I think we're trying to get more SA staffing around that. It's obviously a jack of all trades of CI kind of work. So
cool.
And I'll also add one more point to that, Samir. You're right, from an alliances, broader alliances perspective, we categorize our alliances partnerships into 3 categories: the leading cloud partners, then we have the platform partners, the likes of Red Hat and VMware, and then we also have the ISV ecosystem partners, which is what you were alluding to. So while these are the subcategories of alliances, the Alliances SA team is primarily more focused on the first 2, even though this team has traditionally helped on the ISV ecosystem related work as well. There is a plan to actually staff an engineering team, which is specifically focused on all the integration work with our ISV ecosystem partners. More often than not, it's the first 2 subcategories where more of field-facing work and expertise is needed, like in pre-sales motions and the likes. When it comes to the ISV ecosystem work, like even if you are in the field and if you're needing help, more often than not, it's engineering level work that is actually needed help for. And there is a plan to actually staff an engineering team, as I said, for that will be working with Mike LeBeau, who works for Nima Bedi. So that will be focused primarily on all our ISV ecosystem engineering and integrations.
Also, previously, I worked with Mike to try to define partner levels at that level and encourage that for low touch partners that we can't afford to, like we couldn't staff an engineering staff of 30 and they all become familiar with the partner. And we also talked with Datadog, and they do it this way as well, is the partner who wants to integrate with us, that's the small company, really needs to learn how to do that in GitLab, and they're used to it. So Identity Cloud Rail came to us and they were building integrations for us, for Jenkins and for GitHub Actions, because they want their tool to be used everywhere. So they're used to becoming familiar with the CI framework and being given sort of a structure that makes them successful within that and engineering that. And that should always be the first default motion, because only they know when they have a major release of their software and that glue code might have to change. there's not a really good way for us to be the owners on code, which is essentially gluing their system, including their new releases, into GitLab. So that's another aspect of it, is really encouraging any technology partners to do the build on that whenever possible.
Cool. And Samir, to one more point to add to your previous question, as far as the engagement model goes, yes, there is a handbook page. It's very limited as of right now, but it provides you pointers as to how you can reach out to the Alliances SA via the triage board. And there is also a Slack channel called Channel Solution Architects, which is a public, like within GitLab, it is accessible to everyone. Where you could also just come in and post your questions. So both the channel essays as well as Alliances essays are on that channel and listening to any questions that are coming in from the field from anywhere. So those are the two ways to reach out to us.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
And I'll drop those links into the Q&A document, the name of the Slack channel, and also the handbook section.
Can anyone share times when you have engaged Alliances essays that have really helped you out? Maybe that would help the others in the room too, to understand times to engage, because we can't necessarily define every time to engage very formally. And some of you are very instinctual about good times to reach out, and it works out well. So if anyone has any stories they want to share, that'd be great too.
I can share one, Darwin. I work with Atif on a new customer, OpenText. They're contemplating migrating their self-managed GitLab instance into an HA environment using GCP. So we're exploring different architectures. That's one of the ways in which Atif was very helpful on a couple of our calls, because they're very opinionated in how they want to eventually move that workload into GCP. So that helped.
Excellent. And were they kind of surprised that we had that kind of Google chops, or?
They were, and they were not only surprised, but they liked it.
Great.
Because it was really targeted, the type of advising we did, and because of it, we're moving faster.
Excellent.
Very good to know.
I've got one, Darwin. There was somebody called Darwin helped me out with a partner who was looking to,
I meant, except for that person, you can't talk about that.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Well, it's a sort of a decent use case. A partner was bidding to an end customer where they needed to provide a reference architecture deployments, but they wanted to understand not just technical, okay, this is how you deploy a reference architecture, all the different nodes, but they were looking at the costing elements, because as a managed service provider, that was important for them. So that was something that, as you know, Darwin, you were able to engage and discuss with them. So. If nobody else has got a question there, can I roll on to my next question that I put in the doc, which sort of Kurt has sort of answered, but so it's going back to HighSpot. So I just noticed that under channel partners, there are a list of about 6 or 7 partners. Is that a tag, Kurt? Excuse my lack of correct terminology. But, so as I say, like under Alliance and Partners, yes, you've got AWS and IBM and Google, and you've got content there, which obviously relates to what we do with them, or capabilities that they have. I'm not quite sure what the use case would be for content tagged against specific partners. I sort of envisaged that HighSpot was more generic content that we could then send out to whoever. So because by extrapolation, if we've got a list of partners there, would that mean that we could end up with individual customers tagged? I would see that would significantly change the the ease of maybe navigating searching if you've suddenly got 500 customers or 500 partners listed in there.
I would hope people don't tag partners, but you never know. Again, the reason of channel partners, I don't know, to your point, like, I'm not sure why somebody would do that.
I could see if one of those partners created something exciting, content that was interesting to others, but I wasn't envisaging using HighSpot to tag content to a particular partner.
Yeah, we're at that point, we're doing like marketing analytics for our channel partner companies, right? That's probably not the best use of channel SA's time. Because, right, I mean, the point of this is, at least a big point of it, is to track usage of things, right? So if we did have something that was, I don't know, some Accenture solution that people wanted to send out, it seems like it's kind of a strange use case to me. I don't know who created the tags there, if that was just somebody trying to, again, pre-populate some data in a best effort type way, but maybe didn't consider what like the actual use case is. But yeah, to your point, I would say, yeah, what under what instance would we tag something as like, hey, this is a C prime asset? Be like, well, it'd be their marketing material. Unless one instance I could think of is if some partner came up with some widget or application shim or something like that that was incredible and amazing, and it was so amazing that our channel salespeople or our sellers were like recommending something that some partner had made. Hey, this is the super auto DevOps toolkit, right? It'll do even more than auto DevOps or something like that, or it's some extension of our product. Then maybe it would slot in there, but that's one of those things.
I don't think the platform is meant for us to help partners manage collateral that they basically own and maintain on the system. Only if it was something that's completely co-developed and there was someone on our side brokering that and willing to be long-term responsible for it. The tags too have been kind of MVC'd. Anyone can create a tag in their own spot. I've created tags that are spot-wide, but you have to ask an admin of the system to make them cross-spot, so available. And they're called lists, but it's the same thing as tags, like what we're talking about here. And sub-lists are like values within that tag. So, or within that category. Yeah, so it's probably pretty free form. I wouldn't presume that there's a massive methodology of curation or content provision behind the labeling scheme. And you can go to the one channel's called HighSpot Help and ask if a particular channel was, or a particular tag was created by the HighSpot team and has a global purpose or not. I've been asking them to change a few of them because their intent is not clear simply by the name. So one was market, and I was unclear about, okay, if all my content that I'm providing applies to every market, do I check every market? And they said, no, that's if it's targeted at a certain market. So I said, could you change the name of that to target market, so that I know that I only pick it if it's exclusive to a region, not that I go in and pick every region for something that's non-exclusive. So you can also ask for changes like that if you're finding something confusing.
Okay, thanks.
Great, we have a few more minutes. I don't see anything else in the document, but any other live questions? Wonderful. Any closing comments, Kurt or Darwin, from either one of you, or Prasad?
Yeah, I would like to add one thing, and that is, Kurt talked about the contribution aspect of it, so which is very important. The Alliance SA team are the subject matter experts on all the cloud partner technology, so they will always be leading the way in putting together all the content that goes onto this dashboard. But it's always a possibility that you may run into customer scenarios where there is some unique use case that the customer is asking for with GitLab on GCP or AWS that you may end up putting together a POC or a demo on. So any great work that you do on any of our cloud partner technologies and integrations, anything of that kind, please bring it to this dashboard and contribute it back to this. So it is not just Alliance SA preparing it, but we are all open for contribution and collaboration for everyone. It was one point that I wanted to add. Kurt, you had something more to say?
No, I mean, that was actually it, is just really a call for contributions. If you have something that you feel is valuable or has been reused, again, especially at the integration in the scope of integrating GitLab plus something else, right? Feel free to reach out, and even if you're not sure of where the exact place to put it in, we'll get it in the right spot. So thanks.
Get it in the right spot on high spot.
That's right. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate coming out this morning.
Yeah, thank you all for your time. Thank you, Kurt. Thank you, Darwin. Thank you, Prasad.
Thank you all.
We'll see you all next time. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you all.
Oh.